In the balmy heat of April 2017, the city of Thiruvananthapuram, capital of Kerala, found itself at the epicenter of one of the most chilling crime stories in the nation's recent history. A quiet, high-security residential area called Nanthankode, nestled barely 650 meters from the official residence of Kerala's chief minister, would soon become synonymous with terror, tragedy, and twisted delusion. At the heart of this disturbing tale stood a man, Cadel Jeanson Raja, a name that would soon send shockwaves through households, courtrooms, and psychiatric evaluations alike. But it all began not with screams, not even with blood. It began with smoke. On the night of April 8th, just past 11 p.m, smoke was spotted rising from house number 117 in Bain's compound. Concerned neighbours dialed emergency services and fire engines were dispatched with urgency. After all, this was a high-security zone shadowed by ministers and uniformed personnel. But no one was prepared for what lay inside. Behind the charred doors and burnt furniture, firefighters uncovered a scene not born of accident, but of atrocity. Inside a locked bathroom, 4 bodies, burnt, mutilated, stacked, lay in the silence of a slaughterhouse. One more corpse was discovered in the adjoining washroom, but something was strange. One of them wasn't real. It was a dummy, fabricated flesh and stuffing. A decoy. The mystery deepened. 5 bodies were found, but only 4 were human. The residents of that house were known. Dr. Jean Padma, a retired cardiologist. Her husband, Professor Raja Thankam, a former history professor. Their daughter Caroline, a 26-year-old medical graduate from China. An elderly relative, Lalitha Jain, and their eldest son, Cadel Jeanson Raja. The dummy changed everything. Cadel was missing. Had he been abducted, murdered, or had he escaped? The police now faced a grim possibility. Was Cadel the orchestrator of this bloodbath? A manhunt was launched. News channels filled the airwaves with his photo. And days later, a railway staffer at the capital city's railway station spotted someone suspicious. A quiet man disembarking from a train from Chennai. It was Cadel. He didn't run. He didn't protest. He didn't even look afraid. In fact, he smiled. Cadel was arrested and brought in for questioning. But what the authorities uncovered next would baffle even the most experienced interrogators. In a calm, unwavering tone, he confessed, yes, he had killed them all, one by one, with an axe. And why? Because he believed in astral projection. He claimed he had mastered the spiritual technique of separating the soul from the body. He said he had freed them, set their spirits adrift from their mortal miseries. But no amount of incense, prayer, or pseudoscience could explain the methodical nature of his crimes. Investigators soon realized this was not the act of a spiritualist, it was the calculation of a disturbed mind. On April 5th, Cadell invited his mother upstairs under the pretense of showing her a new video game. As she sat, eyes on the screen, he struck her from behind with a carpenter's axe, blow after blow until she stopped breathing. Loud music masked the violence. Then came his father and sister. They returned home around lunchtime. Cadell dined with them calmly. He told Caroline that their mother had gone out on an errand. Then, one by one, he led them upstairs and killed them in the same brutal fashion. Their bodies were dragged to the same bathroom. The smell of blood was masked with cleaning fluids. He even bought takeaway food for 5 to avoid suspicion. He slept that night among the corpses. The following day, he told the housemaid that the family had gone to Kanyakumari with a relative. Later, he murdered his aunt Lalitha, who was visually and hearing impaired. Her body, too, was hidden. On April 8th, when decomposition began to win against chemicals, Cadell poured petrol over the bodies and set them alight. But the fire got out of control, smoke betrayed him, and his escape was short-lived. What followed were deeper revelations, not just about a crime, but about a young man's haunted past. Cadell had been an underachiever, frequently compared to his successful sister. At Christ Nagar School, he was moved from the elite ICSE stream to a lower division due to poor performance. He was beaten for not answering questions. At home, his father didn't spare the rod either. His mother stayed silent. Cadell's inner world turned darker. He retreated into solitude, expensive gadgets, and isolation on the first floor of the house. No friends, no confidants, no one to see the rot beneath the silence. Psychiatrists would later suggest that Cadell displayed traits of schizoid and schizotypal personality disorders, detached, eccentric, and inwardly chaotic. Despite having a normal IQ, his mind wandered far from reality. He showed early signs of schizophrenia. His academic path was riddled with failure. He was sent to Ukraine to study medicine, not once, but twice. He returned both times. Australia followed, with a brief stint in computer engineering. Again, unfinished. Eventually, he turned to animation and game design. For once, his parents supported him. He found work and came home, working remotely. But that reunion was short-lived. The rage, long simmering beneath years of neglect, finally erupted. Forensics confirmed everything. The axe was purchased online. Traces of petrol were found on Cadell's clothing. His laptop revealed hours spent watching violent web series, murders by axe, executed from behind. The sessions with his psychiatrist were haunting. At first, Cadell talked of freeing souls. Then he admitted to bitterness, hatred, revenge. His father hit him. His mother allowed it. His sister was the golden child. He was forgotten. The trial began. The evidence was overwhelming. Over 100 documents and dozens of exhibits. The judge found Cadell guilty on multiple counts of murder, arson, and destruction of evidence. On May the 13th, 2025, Cadel Jeanson Raja was sentenced to rigorous life imprisonment. A fine of rupees 15 lakh was imposed to be paid to his surviving uncle, the man who had once called this family his own. The prosecution had sought the death penalty. The defense pleaded mental illness, but the court decided this man would live behind bars, haunted by what he'd done. The real horror lies not in the murders alone, but in the years leading up to them, in the silence of a child's suffering. The violence that was never addressed, the neglect that festered in an ordinary house. Astral projection was never the cause. It was a curtain, drawn hastily to cover decades of pain. Because childhood trauma doesn't always scream, sometimes it festers, sometimes it learns to smile, and sometimes it picks up an axe. We remember the victims. We mourn what was lost. But we must also ask, how many more children live in such silence, unseen, unheard, and untreated? And how long until we listen?